Hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our webinar today, Office 365 Security Features that Nonprofits Should Know and Use. Before we get started, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items, so all callers will be muted. If you have questions, you should see a chat box on the left-hand side of your screen. If you lose your internet connection, try reconnecting using the link that was emailed to you. If you have to drop off early or if you want to watch the webinar again, we'll be hosting the webinar on our website at techsoup.org/community/events-webinars. We'll also be sending an email with the presentation, the recording, and any relevant links. If you're on social media, feel free to tweet at us at TechSoup using hashtag TSWebinars. But like I said earlier, we'll be using the chat box that you see on the left-hand side of your screen. So just a little bit about TechSoup before we get started. We're located in 236 countries and territories, and we serve over 1 million nonprofits globally. We work with several technology partners like Adobe, Intuit, Microsoft, Symantec to help make our mission possible. Today's webinar is primarily focused on Microsoft Office 365. So before we get started, I just wanted to get a sense of who's in the audience today and what your experiences with Office 365. So if you don't mind answering this poll question, I'll give you guys a couple seconds to answer. Do you have an Office 365 account already? So it looks like a majority of you guys do have an Office 365 account, which is great. So I'm going to show the results so you guys know who's in the audience today. And then I would also like to know, if you guys don't mind answering, where did you get your Office 365 account? Was it through TechSoup, through Microsoft, or elsewhere? All right, so I'll give you guys a few seconds to answer. Okay, so it looks like the majority of you got it through TechSoup. Okay, perfect. Also, just before we get started, I just want to make sure you guys can hear me okay. So if you don't mind typing into the chat box where you're calling in from, and I'll read a few of them out just so we know where you're calling in from and that you can hear me. So we have Indianapolis, Eugene, Oregon, Austin, Texas. Okay, cool. So it looks like you guys can hear me okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce today's speakers. So my name is Seema Tucker. I'm the Senior Manager of Content here at TechSoup. I also have my colleague Cameron Jones, who's the Vice President of Solutions and Services here at TechSoup. Cameron oversees TechSoup's development of innovative services and solutions for the global nonprofit sector, including IT consulting and management services, nonprofit validation services, and refurbished hardware. Cameron has a long, successful track record of leading globally distributed cross-functional teams to implement complex programs across multiple geographies and languages. I also have Linda Woodup, who's the Director of Client Solutions and Education of IT Services at Tech Impact. Linda manages all aspects of client relations for Tech Impact, including educating nonprofits about technology solutions. Linda works with local, regional, and national partners to provide the nonprofit community with increased knowledge of technology through speaking engagements, individual consultations, and digital content delivery. So I am going to go ahead and pass it off to Linda.
Great, thanks, Seema. I work at a nonprofit organization called Tech Impact. We are a 501c3 nonprofit whose mission is to empower communities and nonprofits to use technology to better serve our world. We're a TechSoup partner that delivers services to nonprofits. So all of our customers must be nonprofits. If your nonprofit needs IT services, everything from planning to implementation, support services, we are the place to call. So feel free to do that. Today we're going to be talking about Office 365 security features. I'm going to start today's session just with an overview and some things that all come together around security to kind of frame our discussion around Office 365. First, let's talk about our security concerns and who we should be worried about. And you'll see here on the slide that there's external hackers. These are the ones that we consider the bad guys, right? These are the ones that are sending us the phishing attempts, and they're trying to hack into our networks, and they're trying to get all kinds of not just cache, but also information from us. They may also be acting as an activist hacker, somebody who is not in line with our organization's mission and seeks to cause us some public embarrassment or harm to our organization. So they're the ones that we know about and we hear the most about in the news. But the other side of the slide are just as important for us to take a look at, and these are internal staff. These are people who work at our organization who could inadvertently, accidentally, or maliciously allow some of our sensitive information to get out. So we really need to use our technology solutions and our internal staff policies to make sure that we're securing ourselves against both external and internal hackers or people. At Tech Impact, we look at cybersecurity threat vectors in 6 general categories: device security, data loss controls, item level encryption, account security, malware controls, and network controls. For the purpose of today's discussion, we're really going to be looking at 4 of the 6 of these. And the ones that we're going to be diving into are device security. How can Office 365 help you protect your devices, those are the computers on your network, against threats, external threats and internal threats. So we're going to look at limiting which devices are accessing our data, enforcing settings, managing updates through Office 365 features, and even going so far as allowing us to wipe sensitive data using like mobile device management and remote wipe services. In terms of item level encryption, we're going to be looking at how to protect sensitive data. If we do need to share data outside of our network, how can we do that in an encrypted way so that we're ensuring the safety of that content from those people that we need to share with. Data loss controls. How are we going to monitor for accidental or intentional sharing of sensitive information such as HIPAA information, Social Security numbers, PII, personal identification information? How can we make sure that we're limiting that? How can we monitor where that information lives in our Office 365 cloud and make sure that we're analyzing patterns to see whether there's behavior that we should, as security-minded administrators, be aware of. We're also going to look at account security. How can we ensure that your Office 365 accounts are being used properly and accessed properly by one person, by the correct user? And again, looking at those logs for suspicious login activities. So if we look at those six areas, those threat vectors that we talked about, that we looked at earlier, 2.5 of those, the ones on the left, should be dealt with by your IT professional. So looking at making sure that you have a firewall in your office, making sure that the operating systems that are on your computers are up to date. They're the current versions. They're Windows 10 Pro, they're Mac OS, whatever the latest one is. Making sure that they're updated and the security patches are done there. Making sure that you've got antivirus and anti-malware installed. That should be done by your IT professional. And then the other 3.5 buttons here we can deal with the Office 365. And that's what we're going to dive into next. So how can Office 365 help us with data security? Again, ensuring only secure devices can access our cloud-based data. I had to enroll my computer into our Office 365 environment so that I can't use my personal computer to actually get any information out of Office 365. Only my work, my company-owned laptop can be connected into that. So that's some of the things that we can do with device security. Making sure that our devices have to, when they're enrolled, they have to meet certain minimum requirements. They have to have a certain minimum operating system. They must have antivirus installed and updated. They must have disk encryption on them. So we're using BitLocker to make sure that we're encrypting the disk at the local level. We've got passwords set to log into the computer, etc. All those things can be set as minimum compliance standards through the device security. Account security, enforcing things like multi-factor authentication. When I log into my Office 365 account, I'm sent a code to my mobile device, which I have to put in. That's the second layer of authentication, multi-factor authentication there. Making sure that we've got monitoring set up for unauthorized access, and this is something that our administrator looks at on a regular basis. Data loss controls, detecting and mitigating any attempts to send sensitive information externally, meaning that we can set data loss controls to make sure that, for instance, if I'm sending an email, if the email contains something that looks like a Social Security number, it's got 3 digits, -2 digits, -4 digits, I'm going to get an alert as that user that says, hey, that looks like sensitive information. Are you sure you want to send that? And I've got to respond yes or no. Or we can set it so that it just blocks that. It won't allow me, and it just gives me an error message and says, that looks like it's got a Social Security number in it. You're not allowed to send it. So that's data loss controls. Item level encryption is a little different. Item level encryption means that we're using sensitivity controls on item level, so files, folders, etc., to make sure that information that's contained within that email message or that document is not allowed to be transferred outside of our organization. So this is what Office 365 can do, and these are how we're going to deal with the licensing to make sure that if you need this, it can be done with Office 365. The levels of concern that your organization has in each of these 4 areas may vary, right? You may have, you may be working at a nonprofit that really doesn't have sensitive information, and you're not that concerned about setting up item level encryption or data loss prevention. But other organizations, maybe you do work with a HIPAA. I can't believe HIPAA is spelt wrong on this, by the way. You may be working with HIPAA-related information or personal identification. You might want a little more compliance and security around your information. Maybe you're working with banking information. That may require you to have a higher level of concern. And then finally, if you're an organization that has a mission that is, can be viewed from 2 different points, and you might have quote-unquote enemies out there, you might want to have the highest level of concern. So that was our, just the overview of how we're approaching this discussion. Now let's see how the licensing can work within that. The Microsoft licensing that's available, what we'll be talking about today are the enterprise level licensing. So we will not be covering business essentials or business premium licensing. We will be talking about the E1, Office 365, E1, E3, and E5. E stands for enterprise. We'll be talking about a different kind of licensing called the Enterprise Mobility and Security Licensing. We call that EMS for short. EMS also comes with E3 and E5 levels. We'll be talking about the a quick overview of the Microsoft 365, which is a bundle license that contains Windows 10, Office 365, and EMS licensing at a bundled price. You also can have some of these with add-ons, Office Pro Plus, Azure Rights Management, online archiving, and advanced threat protection, but we're not going to be discussing those in depth today. So let's look at the 5 licensing that are available to nonprofits. Again, the first 2 on the left we're not going to be talking about today. They're the business level. The next 3, E1, E3, and E5 layer, you can review this slide when you get the recording. What I wanted to call out are those sections that are highlighted in yellow. With your E3 licensing, that's a $4.50 per user per month price, but it includes compliance solutions, data protection with DLP, data loss protection, and some other services. If you go to the E5 license, which is $15 per user per month, you get that plus advanced e-discovery tools, analytics, and other services. I just wanted to call those 2 things out. I'm going to show you details in the next slides. So here's some details about the Office 365 E3 security features. Advanced email using archiving and legal hold capabilities. If you're in an organization where you need to hold all of the email correspondence from your staff members, whether they work there or not, or they've gone, that's what legal hold capabilities can do. Also allows us to set up that data loss prevention policies to ensure that Social Security numbers and that kind of information cannot be shared externally. Document and email access control. This is rights management services. This is allowing us to encrypt the file level sensitivity information. Message encryption, allowing us to send sensitive information outside of our organization if we do it in an encrypted way, which means that when you send information and you encrypt it in an email, when I receive it, it'll say so-and-so sent you this message. Click on this link to go to a secure portal to read and respond to that information, ensuring that the information doesn't really get to my local inbox or my local computer as the recipient, so therefore I can't do something dumb like share it accidentally with others. Advanced compliance tools using the e-discovery center, where you can search, you meaning the administrator can search across all components, communication components and file storing components for compliance level information. So that's the E3 security features. The E5 security features have all of the things that we just saw on the previous slide plus these additional. Advanced information protection, threat intelligence, allowing us to look at the whole threat landscape. Again, this is for administrators to take a look at threats that are potentially involving your Office 365 realm. Advanced security, helping us set up things like customer lockbox, two-factor authentication for administrator approvals. It's a higher level of that two-factor authentication that we can set up there. And then finally, and again, those analytic tools so that we can really get a sense of using dashboards to see where our compliance needs to be strengthened, where some attempts are coming from, and allow us to take even more action against that. So those are your Office 365 licensing security feature overview. Now this slide is about Enterprise Mobility and Security, EMS. EMS, or Enterprise Mobility and Security, allows us to take even more compliance and security control of our cloud. And these are set up in two different licensing. There's the EMS E3 licensing, and then there's the EMS E5 licensing. EMS E3, Microsoft has made available the first 50 of those licenses for free. After you go through the 50, you'll be paying $2.50 per user per month. EMS allows us to do more with overall identity management through Azure AD, and so that first bullet point there, Azure Active Directory, Azure AD allows us to set user identity across the enterprise with more control that we can set for all users. So that's that my device security, my user security, the fact that I have to do multi-factor authentication and I have to comply with certain rules and regulations about my device being connected, managing mobile devices and apps so that I can do things like, my administrator can do things like wipe my computer. If I contact my administrator and say, I lost my cell phone, my administrator can just send a message. The next time that cell phone comes online, all of my Office 365 information, my inbox, my calendar, any files that I might have saved, at my Teams messages, etc., can be all remotely wiped. Same thing if I had lost a laptop. So that's Enterprise EMS E3 allows us to do Active Directory and do some of those things. And you'll see that Intune is part of that. E5, the MS E5 does all of that, plus a little bit more heavier Active Directory. There's a P2 means Plan 2, so there's some more in-depth things that we can do with the Azure AD. The same thing with Azure Information Protection. It has a P2. And then the most sought after thing for most of the people that we talk to is the Cloud App Security, which we'll talk about in a minute. So we're back to those four threat vectors. How can your licensing through Office 365 match up with what you want to do in these categories? So again, if you're any nonprofit and you're just a little bit concerned about security, just a general security, making sure we're generally secure, some things that you're going to want to do. In the device category, you're definitely going to want to have Windows 10 Pro loaded on as your operating system across all your Windows-based devices. That's just a no-brainer in today's world. The Windows 10 Pro is going to give you the most security functionality. It's going to have the most current up-to-date security patches, etc. It's also going to allow you to, if your computer has a TPM chip in it, it'll allow you to use disk level encryption on your computer as well. Great for laptops. For item level encryption, you may not be that concerned about it, so you can just go with your Office 365 E1 license and be fine with that. For account security, we are recommending that all nonprofits, because you get the first 50 for free, you might as well install the Enterprise Mobility and Security E3 license for at least those people within your organization that deal with some sensitive information, right? Your finance department, maybe your executive director, maybe your human relations people. You would probably want to have the Enterprise Mobility and Security E3 license. For data loss controls, again, maybe you're not that concerned with allowing your users to share content and they know pretty much that they shouldn't be sending social security numbers out. You don't need that. Maybe you're fine with the E1. And then again, you can see how as we get more and more security conscious or compliance conscious, we're going to add those licensing. So you're seeing here that if you are working with HIPAA or FIRMA or banking regulations or you're concerned with GDPR, you should be bumping your licensing for Office 365 up to the E3 license. You should still be using the Enterprise Mobility and Security E3 license, and that's going to, and of course the Windows 10 Pro. That's going to be allowing you to set up data loss prevention rules, item level encryption. It's going to allow us to do that device security and the user identity security with the multi-factor authentication and all those kinds of controls that are required and will keep you in compliance. Many nonprofits are doing that. They're doing the E3 Office 365 and E3 for enterprise mobility and security today. If you're an organization that has that mission that could cause you to have political enemies, you're going to want to step up to Office 365 E3 maybe, but definitely the Enterprise Mobility and Security E5. That E5 has that advanced threat intelligence where we can really hone in on who's trying to attack us and when. It also allows us to do things like set up the cloud app security as well. And so at least at a minimum, Office 365 E3, you could go to Office 365 E5 as well, but definitely the Enterprise Mobility and Security E5. So you can get a look at this, and you know, if you want to err on the side of security, it's never a bad thing. You can always go up in level. So if you're at a certain licensing now, you can always increase that licensing. Remember, this is also mix and match across your enterprise. You could set up the really super duper E5 stuff for some of your most vulnerable users. Your, like I said, finance department, executive director, HR department, you might want to do that. And then maybe for some of your frontline workers, you could back off a little bit and at least, you know, do E1 or E3 for Office 365 and then EMS E3 or E5. For configuration and support, we're looking at, this isn't easy to do. So I just want to throw that out there to say it's not easy to do. Remember that left side of the column, those 2.5 things that I said your IT administrator needed to do for you? That's absolutely true, and you should do that first. I've got a couple of bullet points here, making sure that you're getting some of this stuff through TechSoup and setting it up properly, etc. For the other 4, we're looking at levels of support needed. And I've got basically 3 here. Those little green guys with the DIY, do it yourself, meaning do it yourself or have somebody that, you know, your IT person at the organization configure that for you. Those blue icons there, you definitely need an IT professional to help you with configure those components. Some of those components like the device security, a lot of that has to do with your Windows and your operating systems and that kind of a thing. User configuration, account configuration. Your IT pro can usually handle that. But then you'll see those yellow guys, the security pro. And I'm sorry there's no women in this, but I couldn't find the icons. Your security pro, you really should engage with a security pro if you're looking for real compliance help. You're working with those political enemies. You're working with data loss prevention controls. IT professionals are still coming, you know, still kind of coming up to speed in this area, some of them. So hiring somebody or finding somebody to help you that is really understanding the security landscape out there and how to configure this properly and monitor it ongoing is really important if this is what you want. Definitely not do it yourself. We have a roadmap here that gives you, and I'm not going to go through all of this. What I want you to notice is the legend at the bottom. There's the blue things are low user impact. Moderate user impact is in yellow, and then black is high user impact. The little triangles are also colored in blue, yellow, or black, indicating the implementation complexity, low, medium, and high. Anything that's going to be high user impact and or high implementation capacity, you should take a look at and talk to somebody professionally about that. I'm going to end real quick by saying that at Tech Impact, this is what we do. We have a whole team of people who help nonprofits get on board with Office 365. We've got security assessments and analysts on staff to help you with the compliance and security concern. We have IT pros that will help you with that device and user account configuration. If you don't have an IT professional that can help you with this, feel free to contact us. I'm going to turn this back over to Cameron to talk about how to get in touch with TechSoup to ask questions about this and ultimately get in touch with Tech Impact to do that.
Hey, thanks Linda very much. So I want to move us quickly through the rest of the slides. I know that we are running a little bit behind here today. So I just wanted to cover that as Linda mentioned, Tech Impact has a number of services available to help nonprofits with this. TechSoup also has multiple resources available to nonprofits to help learn about, adopt, and manage Microsoft Cloud products and subscriptions. To learn about our Microsoft Cloud products, our TechSoup Courses program currently has 5 courses available with lots more on the way. In addition to that, to help with adoption of Office 365 and other cloud products, we have several services offered at different levels to help meet different nonprofit needs. So we have a basic Office 365 setup, which does not involve migration. This is generally for small orgs that are using Gmail or Hotmail or Yahoo accounts that want to get off of everybody using their personal accounts and get onto something where you have an organization-wide email domain. We also have Office 365 email migration for smaller organizations, and those are pretty basic, easy migrations. And we also have a DIY migration workshop for small organizations that's running in partnership with Tech Impact for organizations that have somebody on staff where that person thinks that they can go ahead and handle the migration by themselves. Generally, it's for pretty small organizations with pretty simple setups. And then for organizations that are larger, we generally have a conversation with you to talk about what your IT systems look like and what your needs are, because larger organizations tend to have more complex needs and IT infrastructure, and so we put together a custom quote for you for that kind of migration. And then lastly, we have lots of organizations that have come to us with questions about how do I fix something or deal with a problem that is IT related but outside of the scope of Microsoft Cloud. And so to meet those needs, we set up a special nonprofit help desk service where you can get one-time fixes handled. You can also go on subscription with that as a kind of a place you can call to get help with various issues. And then we also have a full managed IT services program offering, which again we offer together with Tech Impact. To request any of these services or get a consult with our team, there's a link here on this page where you can go and sign up for a time to come and talk to our team and get some advice and information, not only on licensing, but also on any of the services available. So I have a couple of time for questions, a little bit of time for some questions. I know that we had, let's see, there was a really good one about Azure AD. Somebody had a question about texting and whether any, Linda, actually this one's for you. Can you recommend any products for texting with HIPAA information that would utilize a Microsoft product? I'm wondering if like Skype for Business would work for that. What do you think?
I think that's a great question. That should be sent to me directly, and I'll send it to our team to get a couple of different, I don't want to give out a product name that until I confirm with my team.
Okay.
So send it
All
to
right,
yeah,
great.
send that to me. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, and do you have another one? Because I saw one from Dave that's asking about the Microsoft Business Associate Agreement, the BAA that you can get, right? Yeah, so Microsoft has a BAA that states that all of their licensing across the platform, and in fact their platform in and of itself is HIPAA compliant. Absolutely true. It's definitely a HIPAA compliant. Even if you use the E1, the free E1 licensing, or the Business Premium or Business Essentials that we didn't even talk about today, the platform is definitely HIPAA compliant. That's the platform. That doesn't mean that your users will stay within the compliance regulations. Adding the E3 or the EMS E3 licensing are going to help you as an administrator enforce the HIPAA standards on your users. So there's two different sides of HIPAA. The platform is definitely HIPAA compliant, but if you feel like you want to take extra precautions with your users to make sure that they're not going against those regulations, then you can use those licenses to enforce the users not to be to stay compliant, I should say. So I hope that cleared it up for you.
Yeah, and on that topic, can the EMS E3 and E5 licenses be used with the business level Office 365 licenses?
Yes, you can mix and match. It's more difficult because the business licenses, so your business licenses have a little bit different back-end capability. So for instance, if you want to run a hybrid mode with Active Directory on-prem and you want to do an AD Connect type thing, you can't do that with your Business Premium or Business Essential licensing as well. Or I don't think you can do it at all, but if you can, you can't do it as well as you can with the Enterprise. So right?
Okay.
So that's why we're saying if you're in this realm of you want to be super compliant and you've got some of these regulations that you want to adhere to, I would always go with the E licenses.
Okay. And Scott is asking, has Microsoft moved the access limiting security features of AAD to E3?
Has Microsoft
Azure Active Directory? Access limiting security features of Azure Active Directory to E3?
The answer to that is yeah. I mean, I don't know, Scott, if you're referring to Office 365 E3 or EMS E3. The EMS E3 is going to provide you that Azure AD, that Plan 1 feature set. So if that was your question, then yes. If that wasn't your question, then send us your question again and you and I can talk about it and clear it up for you.
And lastly, Tommy asks, what version of Azure is required to use MFA, multi-factor authentication?
So multi-factor authentication can be set up on an individual user account, regardless of which license, Office 365 license you have, and it does not require EMS licensing at all. You can go in and say, this user on an individual account, we want this user to set up and have multi-factor authentication. And you can do that on a user-by-user basis. If you want to set up globally multi-factor authentication and do some get fancier with it, if you will, setting up standards such as if the user isn't on our local area network in the office, they always have to put the multi-factor authentication code in, but if they're inside the office, they don't. Or if we suspect that they're at a coffee shop, they definitely have to. Or if they're not using their own device, they always have to. All those kind of more complex rules, then you do need the EMS E3 license for that.
Great. All right. Well, thank you very much. I think we're out of time for questions. Again, I'm sorry we've run over a little bit, but I know this is a topic that's of a lot of interest to people, and I'll hand it back to Seema.
All right. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Cameron. So apologies for going over today. If you guys don't mind, when you close out, there is a post-event survey. So if you have any feedback for us on today's webinar, it's always really helpful, and it helps us dictate future webinar content. So please share your feedback with us. We also have several webinars that are coming up in February, but our next Microsoft-related one will be on 3/11 on how to be a data-driven organization with Power BI. So hopefully you can join us for that. And I put the link for the RSVP in the chat box, and it will also be on our website. So I'm going to go ahead and close out today's webinar. Thank you to Linda, thank you to Cameron, and thank you to Zreen and Gary on the back end. And thank you to our sponsor, ReadyTalk. And we hope to see you on the next one.